Remax Fine Properties, the Canadian realtor in Arizona, and my partner, Linda, that's you.
Hi, Linda LeBlanc.
She's
That's me.
the American.
Hello
She's
there.
the American counterpart.
Yes.
Welcome to another episode.
I'm here in Scottsdale, Arizona.
There you go. Welcome to another episode of Cactus and Canucks. And well, Thanksgiving just passed, so we know the snow's around the corner, and we know that you guys are packing up if you're not already en route to the sun. So we wanted to address some of your questions and concerns about what exactly do you need when you are going to cross the border. So we decided to invite a professional in his field, Mr. Robert Devine, and he's going to inform us so that you guys don't have any anxiety on your trip. Robert, can you tell us a bit about your role and your background?
Yes, I'm an immigration lawyer, have been for 40 years. I am at a law firm called Baker Donaldson, known for Howard Baker, who was, head of the Senate and chief of staff for Ronald Reagan and so forth. But we have about 700 lawyers around the U.S., mainly in the Southeast. I run the immigration practice. We have about 7 lawyers and a team. And I had the unique privilege for 3 years of being appointed by George W. Bush to be the chief counsel, the chief lawyer of the Immigration Service, USCIS, that is the agency that decides visa petitions, green cards, and citizenship. Then I went back to being a lawyer again and have been here ever since. I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Naples, Florida, where I hang out with quite a few Canucks. In fact, our place was, our development was developed by Canadians, and that their third generation of those families are my buddies.
So you speak Canadian, eh?
I could sure listen to it.
And did they teach you how to drink a lot of beer yet?
I think I already knew that.
So let's talk about Canadians that contact you. What kind of scenarios are they bringing to the table for you about crossing the border and about being in the U.S. in general?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are really minding their 180 days and their 6 months, and they don't really always understand why. They don't realize that primarily it's a tax reason, not as much an immigration issue. But there are immigration consequences of starting to spend most of your time in the United States. Most people, for a number of reasons, try to spend no more than 6 months. And that's what the buzz I mainly hear about. This year, we're going to hear a lot about this registration thing. It's going to be a pain in the neck.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a few people dealing with tightened TN interpretation, paying a $30 I-94 fee instead of $6. But I mean, that's not what people really talk about. Well, they moan about it. But those are. I mean, and then everybody's just kind of worried. They've heard stories about aggressive policing at the border and people being turned around for things that they never would have before. Mm-hmm. And, it's hard for me to know how much of that is real and how much of that is just kind of overblown, a few instances that could have occurred at any time in the history of the world. And they just happened now. And with all the other buzz, they get more reverberating press. But I would say, I don't think that, there's more of a tone of vetting, scrutiny, but I don't see evidence of, signs of ruthlessness and mean spirit.
That's probably at every border right now, I would imagine,
Oh yeah, the vetting, whatever's going on in the Canadian border is nothing unique.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take you back just so that you can give an explanation to people about the 180 days. Mm-hmm. So what is the 180 days and what are the consequences?
Okay, this is a tax issue primarily, and I'll, not being a tax lawyer, I'll just tell you what I think I understand. Reality is that for almost everybody else in the world, it's really 120 days. If you're going to be here repeatedly and consistently, if you were here for an average of more than 120 days a year, if you were not as a Canadian from anywhere else, you would become treated after a few years as a tax resident and be taxable in the U.S. like any American would be, subject to treaties and so forth, which there are. But it'd be something that you have to start really paying attention to. There is a sort of unique situation with Canada where it's not 120 days, it's 180 days, as long as you can show that you continue to have, your primary substantial connection in Canada. And that dovetails with requirements of the Canadian health system, as I understand it, of needing to be primarily resident in Canada in order to have your active health insurance. Now that's just hearsay for me.
But that's actually that's true.
Okay, and then there's people are primarily coming here as a visitor, and the requirement is that you must be maintaining a home. The statute says to be a visitor, you must be maintaining a home abroad to which you intend to return, and that's what we call non-immigrant intent. And it's your burden to to convince the officer, if they want to ask you questions about it, that you meet that requirement. Essentially, that's being prepared to show, I have a place to live in Canada, and I mainly live there, and I can afford to come here. I'm not going to need to work, be on welfare or whatever. Those are the main things. You do it 50 times and you don't feel like you need to be carrying evidence of any of those things. And then one day you run into some over-caffeinated officer who says, show me, that you have a residence in Canada and that you intend to return to, and you have ties there, and you've got the money to support yourself while you're here. And you're like, blah, 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 blah,
Where's my drivers?
So
what consequences for people who overstay their 180 days?
Well, as a Canadian, when you're allowed in, you're generally allowed in for 6 months, like most everybody else on visitor visas. But with Canadians, you typically, you sometimes don't even get an I-94 card, particularly if you come in on across a land border. I say I-94 card, it's not a card anymore, it's an electronic record. Mm-hmm. But you're allowed 180 days. If you stay too long, then you're subject to being deported if you were caught. That's pretty rare and not likely. The main thing is that, the more you have a history of staying too long, then that could end up showing up on a port officer's computer screen the next time you come in, and they start giving you more trouble.
Right.
And then it starts getting very serious if you stay more than 180 days too long at one time. If you do that, you have become inadmissible. You've triggered what we call a ground of inadmissibility. You get on a bad list for having been unlawfully present for more than 180 days. And at that point, you're barred from coming in for 3 years.
Okay.
Wow. Robert, I have a question, if I may. Can that 6 months or 180 days be broken up into over a year, or does it have to be consistent?
It's my understanding. It's just how long are you physically here in the year? So you can come and go. You could spend 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, perpetually, and be okay with that tax rule.
Okay. And who's tracking that? Is the government tracking it at the border when they come and go at the border? Is that how that's being tracked? So if someone comes in only for 2 weeks each month, is that being tracked through the border process?
If you come across a land border, I'm not sure there's any record that is necessarily kept. And so it may or may not be. Right.
Oh yeah, they scan your passport. They know exactly when you.
Okay, if you're being scanned, there are border situations where there's huge volume and they're not.
Yeah.
Not that, but okay. if they're scanning you, they have an electronic record, and the records are better and better and better all the time. And so, if you were somehow logged as you crossed by the U.S. officials, then that's being tracked and it won't be forgotten. And that's not necessarily. I don't know. I have not been involved in any situations where somebody was being challenged by the U.S. tax authority, saying you stayed more than 180 days, therefore you are a tax resident and you should have filed a tax return and blah blah blah. I haven't been through that process, so I don't know. I can't claim to know what the details of how that works and how they access information. And most of my interactions are with people who travel by air, and their data, their travel is picked up by the airline system and reported to CBP, and I-94 records are kind of automatically created, and there's a travel history that you can access by going to cbp.gov/I-94, and you can see what your history is.
Right.
That won't necessarily contain land border information.
So
What are the most? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead, Linda.
What are the most important documents required for Canadians to enter our country, especially at the border crossing? And do they have to prove that they have a job and they can afford to be here? I guess that's a combination of the two with documents.
Well, the first thing is what kind of identity travel document do you need to have? And I would say get a passport and use that. That's always the answer. Use a passport. You can use, a Nexus or Century card, or, but even that, if you use that without a passport, you're not going to get to go in the fastest line every time because, you have to have the combination to use certain kiosks and so forth. Just bring a passport. If you also have a Nexus card or something, then great. There are specific details about who can, depending on which way you travel, what you could get away with less than a passport. But I would just say use a passport.
And is there any other additional thing? Is it different if you're going by air or by land?
It is different. So if you're going by air, you definitely got to have either a passport or a Nexus card. That's it. And again, a Nexus card by itself will be less advantageous in some situations mechanically than Nexus with a passport. For travel by land or water, you could have a trusted traveler program card, enhanced driver's license, a secure certificate of Indian status.
So you don't need your passport by land?
You could be admitted without a passport by land. I don't recommend that.
No.
I recommend getting a passport and using it.
And I don't think that we have those enhanced driver's license, but I could be wrong. I'll have to ask one of my friends.
I've
might
never.
change over the past year with everything going on, so it might have happened. Yep. Has there been any new changes in 2025 that travelers should be aware of when they cross the border? Either way.
Yes. I don't try to advise people about going into Canada, but it's for coming into the U.S. The main thing that's new is the requirement to register online with the Immigration Service if you have been here or are going to be here for 30 days or more at a time. So when you get near 30 days, you need to get online at the site for the G-325R. You can just Google G325R or go to uscis.gov/G-325R. And there you can file only online. This is not a paper form. You have to go online. You have to set up an account with USCIS. But the first thing you need to do is go on. The thing you have to do to get to the online form is go through a series of questions that confirms that you actually do need to file this form. Because if you came by air, for instance, you've been registered. Your I-94 is your registration. So you don't need to do this. It's basically then only people who came by land who are staying more than 30 days who need to do this.
What if they don't do that?
They could get in trouble.
Okay.
I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen. I mean, they would be in violation of the law. They could be deported. They could be, I haven't seen situations where this is being enforced on people yet, where people failed to register, somebody figured it out, and now they're encountering, immigration officials in a way that has come to bear. And I haven't had the need to bone up on exactly what it is. Our focus has been on making sure people understand to do it.
Yeah.
Right. But it could become a problem.
Is at the border, the follow up on that. I mean, that's really interesting because I think about how most people don't pay attention to what's going on and the changes that are happening. And it could be diabolical to some people. So my question is, at the border, do they give them like a sheet or something to remind them if they're going to be in the States 30 years?
I honestly don't know. Do you know from going in or from talking to people? I honestly,
I just wonder how the people are getting this information to know it. That's what I'm.
Yeah.
That's why
well, I mean, the U.S. government approach to that is, well, we published it in the Federal Register. Don't you read that every day?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
which is unreasonable. I gotta believe surely there are things posted, maybe things handed out at the land border for whom this is the main problem. But I don't know that from personal experience or personal accounts.
I know that like last year, so when people were going back, there was a lot of confusion about, what forms you needed. It was really confusing. They thought you had to have your I-94 printed out. It was just so confusing, but I think they've sort of fast-tracked and made it easier. So hopefully that's just more online as a Canadian when you're crossing the border by land.
It's actually a good idea when after you've come in by air and I-94 was created for you. It is a good idea to print that, go onto the I-94 site, print out the record of your I-94.
Yeah.
And carry it around, make a little copy of it, throw it in your wallet or
just less hassle at the border for less questions.
Well, I'm not talking about the border. I'm talking about in case you get, stopped and questioned inside the United States. You're supposed to have evidence of registration.
That's true. Yeah, I never thought of that.
So the I-94 is your evidence of registration. So good to have it on you.
What about Canadians entering on a TN or going to pursue a TN, there's been some changes to the H1?
Right. So with TN, there mainly has just been a tightening of interpretation. To the extent that in the past, you could just say, well, I'm going to work at so-and-so, and I have this degree that is one of the professions in the TN list. Maybe you could get through. Now there's more scrutiny. Okay, show me that the evidence that the job you're doing literally requires having that degree, right? Not just that you happen to be doing a job and you happen to have the degree, but that the job requires that degree, that kind of thing. So it means more careful, what I call, it's kind of the grind of being an immigration lawyer. You're working with people to document and articulate the obvious, right? I mean, it's obvious to you. It's not going to be obvious to some officer who is inclined for some reason to be skeptical about you that day. And you should carry documentation that shows what you need to show. So a letter from the U.S. employer explaining all about this job and what the duties are and why it is required to have that kind of degree. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
And I would say, you know, if you're going to do TN, you might want to get a lawyer to help. I mean, sure, there are plenty of people who've done it a bunch of times without a lawyer, and you know, God bless you. But if you're worried, you know, get somebody who's trained to kind of
Sure.
think about worst case scenario and, you know, help you document and articulate what seems to you to be obvious and goes without saying, but it needs to be said.
Have you seen in the past, in recent, that more Canadians want to leave Canada and seek employment in the U.S.? Have you had lots of inquiries?
Americans leaving to go to Canada, not Canadians ceasing to come to the U.S. Is that what you're saying? Americans
Well,
want to
vice
go.
versa. Are people trying to get out of either country because of the, you know, political climate?
Economics.
Well, I think that there may be a lot of reasons why, you know, some portion of Canadians who have been coming regularly to the U.S. have begun to choose not to. It may have more to do with, you know, with money changing values and currency values and so forth. But I mean, it could also be politics a little bit. And, you know, I mean, I hear people who've said I've done, you know, I have some friends who've said, okay, I'm done. You know, maybe one had a child who got harassed at the border and they were like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. Something, you know, different things affect different people. I would imagine that more often than not, it's really economics, but, you know, people can articulate a lot of things.
Yeah, I actually had some clients that I was talking to yesterday, and I said, you know, more often than not, the Canadians that are choosing to sell now, the majority of it is that they're, you know, sure, maybe they don't want to come to the U.S. because of the political climate, but also more so that they're older. And if you change your medication or you have a, you know, surgery, then it affects the healthcare. Insurance is super expensive. And the exchange rate now is
Right.
you know, 70 cents to $1. So taking that amount of money back into Canada is very advantageous for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a good time for them to make that change if they don't have someone in their family that wants to continue coming to the U.S.
Well, I can say from experience, from my Naples experience, it's just as warm and it's just as pleasant as it ever was.
Yeah.
And you know, and everybody I know is happy to see you.
Right.
So
and when it starts snowing, I mean, you have your place in Florida that you know, you want to get to the sun, you want to get to the golf courses. That's
right. But I guess my point is that don't let kind of over celebrated governmental actions or, you know, posturing convince you that Americans feel differently about Canadians. They don't.
mm-hmm. Right. So as an immigration lawyer, outside of the Canadian topic, are you like swamped, overwhelmed with business now? Has that changed just because of everything that's going on?
We have a lot of, you know, there's a lot going on with you mentioned the H-1B. I mean, that's not a thing unique to Canadians like the TN.
Right.
But it is in a swirl and a half,
Uh-huh.
you know, with the government, you know, well, with the president putting down executive orders saying it now costs $100,000 more to get an H-1B. But I mean, these things, they come out, you know, big bluster. Now, even as of today, this very day, it's the government has clarified, well, you only have to pay that H-1B fee if you're coming from outside the U.S. for the first time. So let's say you're here as a student already and you want to change your status within the U.S. Well, you don't have to pay the $100,000 fee.
Can you explain to people that are watching and listening what that visa is so they know?
Yes, H-1B is the standard general professional visa in the United States for somebody coming to fill a job that requires at a minimum a bachelor's degree, a 4-year degree in a specific field or the equivalent combination of education and experience. and where the job is paying at least what we call the prevailing wage. So they're not using, the employer is not using the H-1B to get relatively inexpensive professional labor, paying the going rate. H-1B is complicated every time, all the time, by the fact that there's a limit on the number of people who can get it for the first time per year. And in fact, when I was in the government, I actually had to develop the lottery that continues today, that confronts the reality that more people are applying than there are spots for.
Right.
But now the government is talking about changing the way the lottery works and say, we're going to allocate those numbers through a tricky, complicated process to the more higher paying jobs. And that's a proposed rule that's in process. And then this $100,000 fee was a shock for sure to the system. There are lawsuits, and
Yeah.
It'll probably all go away. I mean, that part. I don't know whether the regulation, changing the way the numbers are allocated will be overturned or not. Whether it'll even be finalized, but
Sure.
if it is, whether it'll be overturned by a court. But it's a lot of buzz.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
So if someone is at the border and they encounter forget documentation or whatever, what advice would you give to them of not being able to gain access to the States? Should they just go quietly, go get
Yeah,
them?
I mean, the problem is that I can't really represent somebody at the board, right? I'm not allowed, a lawyer can't go with you. You can't really call a lawyer to be with you.
They can't phone you and say, hey, they denied me access.
Generally, you can't phone while you're in the heat of the moment.
Right.
And you don't have the right to counsel, and you're not given one, really. And so you need to be prepared beforehand to think through this. And this is a good chance to this is what I would tell somebody in advance of going to the border, if they have any concern at all about whether there's going to be a problem. I mean, first, be honest. Be ruthlessly honest. Do not try to shade the truth to somebody who has access, who can get access to your phone and who knows what, and who is going to really be mad if they conclude that you were lying to them.
Right.
Because an officer can make a decision. If they conclude that you lied to them, they can make a formal decision to that effect, and that means that you are that you've been given. They can give you expedited removal, where that officer is the police, the judge, the jury, and the executioner, and there's no appeal, and you're just sent away, and you're barred for at least 3 years from coming back. Don't tempt them to do that. And so be honest. And if it starts getting, seeming very difficult, like you don't think you're going to be able to convince this officer to let you in, then start thinking about suggesting, what if I just withdraw my application for admission?
Yeah. Right.
And I'll go home and you can figure out another day and time and place to pursue this after getting counsel. Yeah.
Scary, but comforting. Are you taking new immigration clients?
Sure. We're always taking new immigration clients.
And how do people reach out to you? I will post this on the caption later, but you can give us your information. Website.
Yeah. So if you just Google Robert Divine, D-I-V-I-N-E, immigration, you'll get me. I'm at the law firm Baker Donaldson. My email address, rdivine, R-D-I-V-I-N-E, like in the hymn books, D-I-V-I-N-E, at Baker, B-A-K-E-R, Donaldson, not Donaldson, but Donnelson, DONELSON.com.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming on today. I'm sure you put a lot of people's minds at ease, and probably some people are already hopping on that website and registering, because I know people don't know that. Linda, do you want to talk about real estate, what's going on in Arizona before we check out?
Well, we're doing sales are still going, and cash deals are always welcome here in Arizona, especially in the Scottsdale Paradise Valley area. And there's more listings available, so buyers, come on out. You'll have lots more choices, and the interest rates are down, so it's a great time for buyers to get out and buy.
What are the rates right now?
I didn't look today, to be honest, but the other day they were like at 6.4, which was, yeah, let me look real quick. I have
And
my handy dandy mortgage.
while she's doing that for buyers, even for Canadians, you kind of think, well, the interest rates, whatever. However, it's important to keep in mind that there's lots of inventory, so you will be able to negotiate a better deal. We will be able
Yes.
to negotiate about that better deal for you. And over 50% of contracts, the seller is accepting concessions, which makes it, and you could also buy down your interest rate. So there's never been a better time to actually.
Actually, guess what? The rate went down 6.17,
Wow,
which
there
is
you go.
awesome. That's there. It's awesome. So this is a great time for buyers to think about buying, and with the concessions, it could make a big difference.
Super. And if you're interested in buying or selling, you can reach out to Linda or I at Remax Fine Properties. Just send us a message. Our information will be in the caption. Everyone have a great weekend. We will be cheering the Blue Jays on as they hit the Dodger Stadium, and we'll see what happens. Thanks again, Robert.
Robert, thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Linda. Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.